starting to get the loss of dissolved oxygen in the water. So this is happening more and more. As the summer progresses, the water heats up. We have more nutrients washing in from the farms because of particular farming practices that are going on, because we're seeing more extreme weather events. We're starting to get more of these incidences of hypoxia where there's no oxygen. If there's no oxygen, nothing lives. So we have an impact here on the fishery potentially. And so Don and the collaborators he's got at various universities are trying to figure this out, be able to predict it in a better fashion. Another kind of forecasting that's going on ties in to something John mentioned was beach closures. In 2008, we had over 3,600 days of beach closures in the Great Lakes. And that number continues to go up every year. And that's kind of disconcerting because, again, that's a part of our economy. And so we're trying to understand what it is that causes these pathogens to get into the system, to end up on our beaches. A lot of it's coming from rivers that are emptying into the Great Lakes, and then those waters move up the shoreline to where a lot of our beaches are. We've also had these horrific blooms of this harmful algal microcystis, which produces toxins, and it's impacting drinking water supplies in Lake Erie. So this bloom, like the hypoxia, grows as the summer progresses, and these harmful algal blooms, if they get into the drinking water supply, these toxins actually go through the treatment process, and people can end up consuming them, and they're neurotoxins, hepatotoxins, not a good thing. So we're trying to understand how this happens, and with this network, we can actually alert the drinking water supplies if this is happening in their area so they can change the way they're receiving water. So in closing, just a note, I've given you just a little piecemeal of some of the research that's going on. Just recently, we found out the University of Michigan now ranks the top 3 in the nation as far as research institutions. That's based on the amount of extramural funding that's coming into the university. We brought in over $1 billion last year in research funding. About $80 million over the last 5 years has gone toward water-related research. And then this recent round in January for the non-federal Great Lakes Restoration Initiative money, we submitted about 40 proposals for that. So we're expecting the funding at Siler to more than double this year. So it's probably going to be over $8 million this year. And it's an exciting time. I moved up here for this job because I knew great things were going to happen in the Great Lakes. It was going to be a wonderful place to be, and it's starting to happen sooner than I thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. In the introduction, you probably noticed that I actually held both of their positions in the last 5 years. They've been doing a marvelous job of moving those institutions forward. I'm just really so happy to see that work. So Jim is up next. If he can figure out how to use the board. That's the first test. Jim is the current director of the Michigan Sea Grant Program and the captain of the university, or the coach of the University of Michigan bass fishing team.
Oh, it is a Big Ten sport. I'm sorry. We won the Big Ten championship in 2001. Yeah, go blue. Hi. So thanks, Don. Don is correct in a way that he's held all our jobs, and he actually probably did them better all at once than we've done them separately, so it's kind of been a challenge to try to step into his shoes. I'm going to talk about the relationship between our research and the economy of the state. Particularly the coastal areas. And I'm going to focus on work done by Sea Grant because Sea Grant's goal is this interaction between research and local development. Sea Grant is a program that is funded by NOAA, again, and by the state of Michigan. It is cooperative between the University of Michigan and Michigan State University, one of the things that we actually can cooperate on. And also, does a series of activities that allow it to develop scientific information for the use of public. There is extension through Sea Grant. That is actually part of Michigan State University's extension program, but we have Sea Grant extension agents around the state to interact with local communities. Communication and education that is focused mostly out of the University of Michigan, and again is focused on educating people about water issues throughout the state. And then research, which is funded mainly through competitive proposals and actually involves all of the scientists around the state in different universities. So it's not exclusively a University of Michigan program, but it is attempting to bring the scientific expertise of the state to solve practical problems for the state of Michigan. And it is focused on the state, although every Great Lakes state or area and every coastal state does have a Sea Grant program as well. Well, John and Alan gave a good job of kind of giving you some idea of the things, the economic importance and the things we do. I'm going to try to focus a little more on some specific examples, because really the economy breaks down to hundreds of little activities going on all at the same time. And for many activities, the Sea Grant program has been viewed as a sort of a honest broker of scientific information, asked to provide details that can be used then for decision makers. One of the first things that I'd like to talk about, Don already mentioned, back a few years ago, Senator Carl Levin asked Michigan Sea Grant to estimate the number of Great Lakes related jobs in the state of Michigan. John had done the work more throughout the whole Great Lakes region, but thinking in the state, Don mentioned, and we published a book on that is on our website that basically showed 800,000 jobs were Great Lakes related in this state, and about 23% of all the salaries in the state came from Great Lakes related activities. Shortly after that, Sea Grant and the Graham Institute for Environmental Sustainability worked on a Michigan Economic Vitality Program, and it looked at this question of restoration. What's the value of restoration going to be to Michigan, not just to the region? There's lots of things that will improve with restoration. Recreation, tourism because of better fishing, better hunting, better swimming. Also, property values. If you have land that's associated with an area of concern and that area of concern is cleaned up, the value of that property will increase dramatically, as well as things like municipal water treatment that Alan was talking about. And the estimate was that between $7 and $13 billion would be generated by these restoration activities. In other words, it would be a net gain, not a net loss of money, as restoration is done in the Great Lakes. A couple of little specific examples of Michigan Sea Grant activities. One has to do with the Clean Marina program. We've started a program cooperatively with the Michigan Boating Industries Association and the state of Michigan, originally the Department of Environmental Quality, now the Department of Natural Resources and Environment, looking at developing marina programs which are concerned about environmental quality and follow best practices so that they have a minimum amount of damage done to the environment. The Clean Marina program is now available online. People can take a training program through it and ultimately get their marina certified. That certification is a positive thing for them in terms of people will use marinas that are certified in the same way that they would buy organic food or do other things that they think are of value to the environment. At the same time, it avoids regulatory costs. Most of the best practices are actually more stringent than the regulations on harbors, and people are voluntarily following them rather than having to be forced into it. And so it's a program that can save regulatory costs as well as generate value for the marinas that follow it. We established a Small Harbors Coalition. That coalition has worked on trying to get funding for dredging and other activities in harbors. And in 2009, an additional $6 million came to the state of Michigan for harbor maintenance because of their activities. We've also looked at the fishing industry, and in this case, the commercial fishing industry, which was once a very strong part of Michigan's economy, but has dropped off considerably. We've established a program called the Legends of the Lakes, which looks at Great Lakes whitefish